Chapter 66, One Seat on the Spaceship. Understood. When Hege nodded, I'll discuss the specifics with Assistant Song. He could already imagine the upheaval it would cause in his company if he suddenly resigned from his positions as chairman and general manager to work as an assistant at another company, especially one where he held no shares. But none of that mattered anymore. Compared to the job before him, he wouldn't even care if he gave his company away for free. However, he couldn't just abandon the subordinates who had worked hard alongside him. Since he could get them an opportunity right now, the rest would be up to them. Song Yao. Shen Shi looked at Song Yao again. You don't have many tasks for now, so teach these two androids. Also, keep an eye on the online buzz about the I'm back incident. Don't let it die down too soon. There's no need to hire paid commenters. I'll give you a way to contact my ship's steward, who will assist you in handling everything online. Understood, Song Yao agreed without hesitation. But inwardly, she was slightly taken aback. The ship's steward, probably an alien too. And it sounded like someone of high status. She resolved to give her full focus and energy to this job. Compared to Wen Hege, who could manage things alone and had already proven himself, her resume was excellent but might not fully apply to her current role. Dropping the ball could lead to lifelong regret. What Shen Shi said next made both of their expressions light up, and they instinctively held their breath. If you follow me and do well, even if humans are defeated 3 years from now, I guarantee there will be a place for you and your immediate family on my spaceship. A spot on the spaceship. Anyone could understand what that promise meant. If humanity wins in 3 years, there'll be heroes who deeply contributed to the victory. If defeated, this promise would be a ticket from death to life. Instantly, the expressions of both changed again, and they looked at Shen Shi with excitement, even with a hint of fervor. Shen Shi observed all of this clearly. Indeed, this would be the fastest way for him to win people over in these 3 years. Although it might not work on everyone, it didn't matter. If someone didn't do well, he could replace them. As long as he held onto the time crystal in the future world, he wouldn't be ousted. That's it, go to work, Shen Shi said finally. Understood. The two got up to leave, and unlike their initial confusion and caution, their departing figures were filled with energy. Shen Shi remained seated at the dining table, unmoving. Only after the two had completely disappeared did the lively birdcat alien vanish as well. After a long while, Shen Shi finally stood up from his chair and walked slowly to the window, looking at the city outside. He had already noticed that he was rapidly adapting to his position. Even his way of thinking had begun to change. Finally looked somewhat presentable. Shen Shi's mouth suddenly curved up. He didn't linger by the window too long before he turned around, sat down, and his personal terminal screened right open before him. Continue learning. He wanted to further grow before the advent of the new era, to match his future position. On that night, a high-level secret base was brightly lit. Helicopter after helicopter arrived continuously from the night, bringing one special person after another. These individuals were mostly middle-aged, a few quite young, and a few already with graying hair, rather elderly, each exuding a strong academic aura. Clearly they were scholars. Teacher Su, I didn't expect you to come. Zhao Pei spotted his former PhD mentor in the crowd, hurried towards him, full of surprise. His mentor, though renowned in nuclear physics, was already 76 years old and should have long retired from the front line. Ah, it's Zhao. Su Xing naturally recognized his proud disciple. His slightly blurry eyes didn't seem dim. They firmly grasped Zhao Pei's extended hand. I read your paper on optimizing the direction of the all-superconducting tokamak nuclear fusion experiment device. Very innovative. Zhao Pei couldn't help but blush. It felt like when he was in school, and the teacher read his essay in front of the class. Quickly he explained, much in that paper is just guesses. Given the current conditions, they're simply impossible to achieve. Please don't tease me. What's wrong with speculation? Su Xing shook his head. In this field, everyone worldwide is groping in the dark. We aren't starting late. Any progress is precious. In 50 years, this will undoubtedly be a field that determines the future. I won't see that day, but you still can. From my perspective, at least some of your speculations can become reality. Then I'll take your blessing. Zhao Pei was somewhat expectant at the possibility. The teacher and pupil who hadn't met in a long while chatted as they walked, whereas many others didn't have as good a conversation partner. Some bore expressions of noticeable tension and unease. After all, being suddenly brought here certainly meant something extremely important was up. Considering that those present were primarily top experts in the nuclear field, it fueled wild speculation. However, as they were escorted by a group of soldiers to an underground research base, they faintly heard noisy exclamations from ahead. Impossible, absolutely impossible. What is this thing? This is heading towards 10,000 terawatts. Add 2 more measuring lines. This is far from the limit. Incredible, this conversion efficiency. What on earth is the principle behind this? Upon hearing 10,000 terawatts, Zhao Pei involuntarily shivered. Though the unit wasn't added, it was easy to associate that number with the rated electric power of nuclear power plants. The world's large nuclear power plants typically have rated electric powers at the gigawatt level. Of course, the actual output power would be slightly less, yet no nuclear power plant has supposedly achieved terawatt levels. Not that it's impossible, but there's no need. Building too large or too many generating groups in a nuclear plant requires increasing the technical parameters of associated equipment like safety containers and mechanical pumps, and even considering the power grid's capacity, which isn't economically encouraged. Chapter 67, he left with a smile. But if it's not referring to that, what other number could be described as 10 trillion? Zhao Pei suddenly felt an urgent desire to know what lay ahead, but he still had to help his teacher. Then he quickly realized. His teacher, surprisingly, had suddenly sped up, even moving faster than he was. Slow down, teacher, please slow down. Zhao Pei was genuinely worried that his teacher might take a fall. But he soon had no time to worry about this. Because as they passed through several tightly guarded checkpoints, a broad scene came into view. Under the bright lights, a group of people was gathered around what seemed to be a makeshift, simple apparatus. At a glance, Zhao Pei saw many familiar scholars and experts. Most were from the field of nuclear physics. In fact, at the very front of everyone was a middle-aged man in a white lab coat, mostly bald and quite ordinary-looking. He recognized him immediately. It was Chen Song, the leading figure in the field of nuclear physics in Eastern country today. Even he had been invited. Zhao Pei realized once again that this assembly was beyond imagination, suggesting that something major had occurred. Standing on tiptoe, he found, embarrassingly, that his height prevented him from seeing inside. It was Chen Song who spotted them. Elder Su is here too. Everyone make room for Elder Su, Chen Song shouted loudly. If Chen Song was the leader of the current generation in Eastern countries' nuclear physics, then the retired Su Xinghai was the leader of the previous generation. Upon hearing it was Elder Su, many quickly made way, with quite a few calling out Teacher Su, indicating they had either attended Su Xing's lectures or were simply his students. Zhao Pei, benefiting from his teacher's presence, squeezed through as well. But at first glance, he was entirely dumbfounded. Because the apparatus before him was completely different from what he'd imagined. He could easily see that this was a massive temporary assembly of high-voltage, high-current measuring circuits, appearing to form a seemingly enormous device. Yet, the output terminal linked by these circuits appeared to be just a palm-sized, luminous, flat, circular object. Even using superconducting material as connection points, it still appeared exceptionally comical. The contrast between large and small was striking. What on earth was this? In Zhao Pei's mind at this moment, he couldn't help but voice the same question he'd heard earlier. But in front of so many people, he forcibly restrained himself. However, his teacher was not so concerned and directly asked, "What is this?" "A fusion reactor," Chen Song replied succinctly. Suddenly, they were all dumbstruck. The newcomers could hardly believe their ears. Some even looked left and right, wanting to see if there was some prank director or a film crew hiding where they couldn't be seen. Even Su Xing coughed several times, needing Zhao Pei to pat his back a few times before he composed himself, eyes wide, and asked again, full of breath. "What did you say?" "A miniature controllable helium-3 fusion reactor." Chen Song enunciated clearly, adding quite a few prefixes and even stressed the words, "I personally assembled it and witnessed the helium-3 being filled. According to current measurements, its power output has already surpassed the world's largest nuclear power plant. And this isn't even its maximum output." Everyone understood these words, but precisely because they understood, it felt like a dream. A miniature controllable nuclear fusion reactor. This was something entirely out of science fiction films. Few of the physicists present like to read science fiction novels, because real physicists often found such novels filled with technical logical flaws, either impossible to achieve or filled with naive fantasies. But now, they couldn't tell if their knowledge was at fault or if science fiction had become reality. Even those who arrived earlier felt equally dazed. Finally, it was the relatively young Zhao Pei who broke the silence. He too felt like he was dreaming, only subconsciously asking, "So, our country found a crashed alien ship, or unearthed relics of an ancient civilization?" Many people looked over. No one laughed. In fact, everyone seemed thoughtful. In such a serious setting, a group of top physicists was seriously contemplating matters like alien ships or ancient civilization. These are things we don't need to concern ourselves with. Chen Song pointed to the glowing object in the center and said solemnly, "We just need to know that it is here, it will change the world, and we must thoroughly study it, and that's enough." Dr. Chen is right. The first to regain awareness was surprisingly Su Xing, the oldest person present. He was fully excited, even taking a few steps closer, reaching out to gently wave his hand over it. "No temperature felt. Is this cold fusion? It's round. Could it be some super strong miniature tokamak device? I see the output is directly electrical energy. How is it converting it?" Others also began to react, one by one focusing their gaze on this incredible little gadget. The more they looked, the more they felt their lifetime of learning was being hugely challenged. The supposed tokamak device ring was one thing. Even so, there was a hint of speculation. But that miniature, incredible energy conversion was like dreaming. Still, it was the most astonishing, completely unrealistic dream. They needed to understand that present-day, top nuclear power plant technology involved the conversion of energy through what? Nuclear energy, right arrow, internal energy of water and steam, right arrow, mechanical energy, of the generator rotor, right arrow, electrical energy. Indeed, the entire process was colloquially referred to as boiling water. Even if one day an artificial sun was created, to use it efficiently, it would still boil water. But this gadget in front of them completely shattered that concept. That was why everyone had such incredulous reactions. What this thing topped wasn't just a piece of black technology. It could not possibly appear randomly. It must have come from a complete, powerful technological system. As everyone began to exclaim and engage in noisy discussions again, Tao De, who had been standing quietly in the corner, discreetly came to Chen Song's side, a bit worried, and asked, "Aren't Elder Su's age and the fact that he's been retired for so long a concern?" Initially, when he knew Chen Song wanted to bring Elder Su, Tao De had actually opposed it. After all, Elder Su was indeed old, and he was no longer at the forefront of technology. Chen Song glanced at him and shook his head. "You just don't get it." His gaze was also fixed on that reflective circular item with a tone of wonder. He said, "With him here, others will cherish this dreamlike opportunity all the more. Besides, even if Elder Su were to fall right now, I assure you, he'd leave with a smile." Chapter 68. Chapter 68. The first batch of devices has arrived. Tao Du was taken aback. Turning his head, he looked at Su Xing standing at the forefront of the group of physicists, his reddened and excited face constantly proposing his ideas, and had to admit that Chen Song might be right. For Elder Su, this might be the day when his dreams come true. A dream that seemed impossible to achieve, like a fantasy. For some of those present, it was probably the same. They had already realized what kind of changes this dreamlike micro-nuclear fusion reactor before them would bring to the world, to their careers. Just this one device could spark a wave of a new era. An era of limitless energy, an era of space exploration hope. Unfortunately, Tao De suddenly sighed softly. Unfortunately, this device that drove so many top scientists to madness was nothing more than a toy among those powerful civilizations in the starry sky. There's nothing to feel sorry about. Chen Song seemed to understand what Tao De was sighing about, his severely bald face showing a kind of nonchalance. If you were to take a modern toy airplane back 1,000 years and have people study it, it could indeed have profound impacts on that era. That's how science works. Seizing an opportunity to get on the fast track is humanity's fortune, and it's a scientist's lucky dream. Chen Song had the qualification to know about Shen Shi's existence. Upon knowing he could acquire this toy, even the entire set of principles, he was euphoric. He simply didn't care about the toy aspect like Tao De. Not mentioning interstellar civilization, scientists from the Eastern country back in the day seriously researched the Western Alliance's submarine toys. and they eventually narrowed the gap. Faced with disparity, no matter how big, all you can do is chase it. Tao Da understood Chen Song's meaning, and after a moment of silence, he extended his hand to tightly grasp Chen Song's hand, saying solemnly, "All right, Dr. Chen, we'll leave it to you all here. Rest assured this is not just our mission but our dream." Chen Song firmly shook Tao Da's hand. "Only, afterwards it's up to you and that person, we can't do much more." His expression, undeniable, held some reluctance as he spoke. But that is reality. In the coming war, outdated technology has no value. The more one understands interstellar matters, the more one realizes humanity's only hope rests on Shen Shi. As scientists who can't play a significant role in matters relating to the birth or downfall of civilization, this is the greatest reluctance. Tao Da nodded solemnly. Witnessing the excitement and fervor of these scientists, he was once again aware of his own responsibility. At least in these 3 years, collaboration with Shen Shi is more important than anything. Soon, Tao Da received a call from Wen Hezhe and hurriedly left. "Do you need a construction team?" "Yes, my upcoming work is to oversee this matter." "No problem. In 10 hours, the construction team with all the equipment and materials needed for construction will be transported to Star Sea Island." "Good." In the following days, Shen Shi did not leave the hotel at all and didn't even go to AI Zinner's place. No one knew what he was doing. But actually, Shen Shi was simply waiting for Gong Chu's response. He already knew what a planet fortress was. Just as its name suggests, this is a project to transform an entire planet into a war fortress. Ground facilities, space facilities, and even further areas, layer upon layer layout. According to the information database, in the future 3,000 years of human civilization, the entire solar system will be built into a star system fortress centered on the blue star. Of course, this incredibly grand project has not been completed. Once all the parameters meet the standards, the blue star may even have the potential to resist the sea-level Dake civilization. In other words, at that time, the evaluation of human civilization in the Mude system will very likely advance to sea level. But even the humans of 3,000 years are yet to reach this level, and modern human civilization is far from possessing such potential. The planet fortress Gong Chu designed for him is only of a relatively basic level, corresponding to the Warren fleet that once invaded the Blue Star. However, even so, Shen Shi guessed that this must be a project beyond imagination for modern human civilization. This made him wait eagerly. Until the 4th day, Gong Chu finally sent a message. "Sorry for the wait, we have completed the design of the foundational structure points of the fortress. Constructions can start. Relevant devices and manuals have been sent to you." Upon seeing the manual, Shen Shi couldn't help but feel awkward. He knew this was a translation issue. Rather than a manual, it was more like a control program to be installed on a personal terminal to manage the product usage and installation. But now was not the time to mind these details. Shen Shi was already eagerly looking into his personal space. "This is..." His eyes gradually brightened. Finally, he could start. He immediately contacted Tao Da. "The first batch of equipment I took a loan for has arrived. I'll take this opportunity to promote the Star Sea Company, prepare for guiding public opinion." "Yes, leveraging the global interest from previous events." "No, not weapons, nor would the alien invasion news be revealed, just enough to elevate the Star Sea Company's existence to a certain speculation. Patent Co-Management Agency. We'll discuss this later, the current matters are most pressing." "Yes, that's it." After a brief communication, Shen Shi immediately hung up the call, then also notified Wen Hezhe. Wen Hezhe had been busy on Star Sea Island these days. After completing all these preparations, he slowly moved to the window. Particles hardly discernible to the naked eye gradually covered his body, followed by a distortion of light that rendered him completely invisible, and then his body lifted into the air. At this moment, it was just the break of dawn, with no one noticing that the high window of such a luxury hotel quietly opened and quietly closed again. This wasn't Shen Shi's first attempt at using the evolution device for invisible flight. Admittedly, he prefers this kind of flying sensation in the void more than taking the walk. Each time brings a sense of exhilaration and joy. Furthermore, Star Sea Island is only about 200 kilometers away from High City, and even just using the force field to propel, it only takes a few minutes to arrive. Chapter 69, ready to shock the world. When Shen Shi revealed himself, suddenly appearing in front of Wen Hezhai, he almost jumped in shock. However, upon realizing it was his boss, he immediately felt at ease. For the boss, this sudden appearance from thin air was a minor occurrence, nothing strange. "President Shen, you've arrived," Wen Hezhai said respectfully. He positioned himself as a subordinate, quite appropriately. "Show me around," Shen Shi instructed. When he appeared, no one besides Wen Hezhai noticed him, but as Shen Shi and Wen Hezhai started moving around, they drew plenty of attention. Especially those veteran subordinates brought by Wen Hezhai. In these days, they were suddenly faced with a major change in their lives. Still to this day, they are utterly confused by the unexpected change. Their boss had a thriving company, about to go public, and they were each stepping into a new phase of their lives when the boss suddenly announced quitting to become someone else's sidekick. For a while, everyone in the company thought the boss might have been brainwashed. It wasn't until they learned the new boss rented this island for 50 years at just $1 did things begin to make sense. But even then, leaving behind a prosperous company, a promising future, to join a mysterious person with unknown dealings. Hence, only a small portion were willing to follow Wen Hezhai, most preferred staying at the original Wen group. When those who followed realized the young man ahead of Wen Hezhai could very well be the new boss who won over their former boss, each one secretly scrutinized him. The first reaction was youth. Really young. Shen Shi was originally not old, and after using the evolution device, he seemed even younger and taller. Yet the aura was powerful. Walking slowly ahead of Wen Hezhai, his posture upright, eyes steady, behavior sophisticated, showing no hint of the impulsiveness typical at that age. "You've done a decent job." Many secretly pricked up their ears to hear the conversation. Only hearing the young boss speak in an indifferent tone. "It practically meets my expectations." "It's not a difficult task," Wen Hezhai humbly smiled. "Moreover, the engineering team is powerful, simply flattening a piece of ground and then building some simple living facilities and warehouses. Reaching this level is sufficient. We can prepare to hold a launch event." Shen Shi looked up at the sky, noticing how sunny the day was. "Launch event?" Wen Hezhai was stunned. "Yes, hosted by you," Shen Shi said. "I don't plan on showing up yet." Even Wen Hezhai was taken aback by the sudden news. Looking around, there's nothing. Even the ground was still exposed, with the newly revealed yellow mud after the grass was uprooted. But upon thinking of the boss's identity, he felt relieved. "Okay, I'll await your instructions," Wen Hezhai humbly said. Nearby, some eavesdroppers were nearly left speechless. Is President Wen really not brainwashed? He truly acts like a sidekick. A launch event. Does our new company have any products, any marketing department, journalists, probably not even cameras? Is it going to be filmed with mobile phones and posted online? But there has to be a product first. Buddy, I'm beginning to regret coming along. Clearly, these people were completely bewildered by the scene before them, even somewhat despairing. They've been working here for 4 or 5 days, clueless about what's happening. Asking Wen Hezhai would only yield a confidential. And now, a launch event is inexplicably forthcoming. Never mind them. If Wen Hezhai didn't know Shen Shi's identity, facing this situation, even with the engineering team present, he would be anxious. "Go prepare." Shen Shi paid no mind to the discussions, calmly instructing Wen Hezhai, "Today, you'll astonish the world." "Understood." Wen Hezhai's voice suddenly rose. Eyes lit up. Indeed, this will be the Star Sea Company's first launch event. Regardless of what's launched, it was bound to shake the world. And he will be the host of this launch event. Perhaps he will be remembered in history. Realizing this point, Wen Hezhai couldn't contain his excitement, turning with anticipation, voice louder than usual. "Quick, stop what you're doing, pile up the clutter to the side, tidy up your clothes. Later, follow my instructions. Anyone who messes with me will regret it for a lifetime." Naturally, Wen Hezhai received a chorus of whispers questioning, "Is President Wen crazy?" But those engineering team members, already trained, moved into action. Under their guidance, everyone swiftly prepared for the launch event Shen Shi spoke of. Meanwhile, Shen Shi shifted his steps, heading towards a simple warehouse. He anticipated the moment the name of Star Sea would echo throughout the world. At this time, Qin Lan and AI Zinner had just finished their daily morning yoga in their rented apartment. Eating breakfast, Today was Saturday, but it seemed no different for them. After breakfast, one would go to school for piano practice, the other for singing. Zinner, did that man still not call you yesterday? Chin Lan swallowed a mouthful of bread, speaking indistinctly. Call him brother-in-law. AI Zinner looked at her dissatisfied. Oh, Chin Lan observed AI Zinner's expression, lacking the courage to say anything more, but couldn't help lamenting. But this brother-in-law really doesn't value you. No calls or even texts in the past 2 or 3 days. He did, AI Zinner interrupted her. Did? Chin Lan's eyes widened suddenly. What did he say? Good night before bed. AI Zinner felt a bit awkward but continued. He said he'll be quite busy soon. As you know, he acquired an island and it's already his, now constructing there. Acquired? Chin Lan exclaimed. Which one? Star Sea Island, AI Zinner recalled clearly. Chin Lan took out her phone, rapidly searched. There's no such island, Chin Lan panicked. He said it's newly named. AI Zinner was quite relaxed. Rename? Can island names be just casually changed? Chin Lan quickly passed the phone. Surely you asked what the old name was, right? Don't tell me you didn't ask, sis. I feel like this brother-in-law has an aura of mystery. You need to find out more. All right, I said I wanted to slowly discover the surprises he holds. AI Zinner paid no attention to Chin Lan's words but still took the phone, scrolling through it. He also said, told me to keep an eye on the news. There will be surprises. Chapter 70, I started a company. Sis, you really are. Chin Lan rolled her eyes, completely convinced. People say pregnancy makes you silly for 3 years, but how come you've been silly since you started dating? However, she quickly realized that AI Zinner was no longer bantering with her, but was staring blankly at her phone. Could there really be some news? Chin Lan thought about that mysterious man she met that day, and felt a bit uneasy. What are you looking at so captivated? She hurriedly asked. Zaya Alenzi. AI Zinner hesitated, looking confused, and then handed the phone to her. Is this kind of situation normal? Chin Lan took a glance and was stunned as well. It was the search engine interface. She had been searching for Star Sea Island and found a load of links. But now, it's still a bunch of links, yet the words have changed. They've all turned into the same line of text. I've created a company called Star Sea. Yes, at a glance, they all transformed into this line of text. And this situation occurred once a few days ago as well. Ah, Chin Lan suddenly screamed and quickly started tapping on her phone. It's that. Sure enough, opening any website or any interface, this line of text appeared in various forms. Just like the I'm back event from a few days ago, it was exactly the same. Until she opened a medical interface and then a banking interface, it didn't appear. Just as has been discussed online for a while. The person who did this deliberately avoided some critical fields, so no major economic loss or personal crisis occurred. But it's not like it couldn't be done. Breaking into these websites is no simpler. So without a doubt, this is once again the self-proclaimed I'm back entity announcing a message to the world in this mind-blowing, imaginative, challenging way. As a concerned fan of this event, Chin Lan was beyond excited. Wait, she suddenly realized and looked back at the phone abruptly. Now all the web pages had returned to normal, just like usual, as if nothing had ever happened. Evidently, 30 seconds had passed. But Chin Lan's memory didn't completely fade away. She raised her head, eyes wide with a mix of fear, hesitation, and a pause, as she said to AI Zinner, Sister Zinner, just now, the information said, the company created, is it named Star Sea? AI Zinner didn't speak, but since a while ago, her eyes had been glowing with some kind of suppressed excitement. Star Sea. And at this moment, regardless of the reactions of these two beauties, both big and small, the entire network of the Eastern country, no, the whole world's network had exploded. People were venting their shock in various places. Damn, it appeared again. There's even a follow-up. Where exactly did this Return Emperor come back from? Could it all just be an advertising stunt? If so, this is the most badass advertisement ever. They even created a company. This just got interesting. I have a feeling, this time it's definitely something beyond imagination, betting it's a big shot returning from the other world. Could they be future people? Coming back could also mean returning to the past. This event has drawn such attention, not only because of that short 30-second obligatory announcement, but also due to the inherent mystery of the incident itself, which even exceeds people's understanding. Numerous experts had given explanations within days, detailing how unbelievable it was to accomplish something like this, and what exactly it signified. That is the God of the Internet. Since the dawn of the Internet, none of the renowned hackers, computer experts, or even teams can compare to the entity behind this event. The other party seems capable of doing whatever they please across the entire network. This also means that all the Internet companies, all the communications companies, mobile computer enterprises, regardless of whether you're a billion-dollar market cap giant or a newbie startup, anyone involved in this field can only and must bow to this God. This is the significance of this event. It announced the arrival of God. And in this information age, the influence of this God extends far beyond just the Internet. Countless people have speculated that the three major human powers, which have remained silent on this event until now, will stop at nothing to find this return emperor from behind the scenes, and rumors say they have already found them. However, this time, the reappearance of the return emperor has undoubtedly shattered such rumors. So right now, on the networks of the Western Alliance and even the Nia Empire, many people are shouting crazily. Aliens have descended. Prehistoric civilization returns. Find him. An alien spaceship has crashed in the eastern country. Some are even claiming the end of the world is coming. They are even more excited, even more frenzied. And at this moment, another piece of news began to spread wildly online. It was a web page video. The whole web page, like a promotional page for a game, had no lines of text, just a huge dynamic picture. It was a vast starry sky, an endless star sea, clearly a dynamic image on the page, yet it felt like you were in a spacecraft, navigating through the star sea, involuntarily drawn in and immersed. Until a certain moment, a cross-shaped star pattern slowly emerged from a star shining with a blinding light, eventually enveloping it completely, transforming into a badge filled with mystery and a sense of technology, accompanied by 4 Eastern country characters appearing at the top. Star C technology, at a countdown with only 2 hours remaining. Normally, such an obviously promotional video would merely awe people with the realism of the starry sea and the coolness of the badge. But now, everyone who saw this video was frantically asking how to access this webpage. And the method was not difficult at all. Some people didn't even need to ask. They had already figured out how to open it. Just by typing the 2 Eastern country characters, star C, or its pinyin, into any internet-connected device worldwide, one could automatically enter the official website of the Star C company. You didn't even need to add a URL prefix. Chapter 71, the Star C that took the world by storm. Without a doubt, the word Star C has rapidly become the hottest term within just over an hour. And it's blazing across the globe. Even foreigners who don't understand any Eastern country characters have already learned these 2 words. This fervor is escalating with the countdown, spreading from the internet to the offline world. In restaurants, streets, subways, buses, you can often see young people, whether acquaintances or strangers, excitedly and intensely discussing, making various speculations. Even elderly people who don't go online are astonished to discover that people around them seem to be talking about these 2 words. As for the internet, it's even more so. At least all the chat groups AI Zinner and Chin Lan joined, whether in class or elsewhere, are buzzing at this moment, and there are countless rumors, secrets, hearsay widely spreading. Neither of them dares to speak, because they truly have inside information. After all, the existence jokingly referred to as the Return Emperor, from the first appearance to this reappearance, has always shown internet technology beyond imagination. At this moment, countless hackers are attempting to attack this website, but they can't even find its real URL, not even a method to attack. The whole event exudes a magical aura, yet it's genuinely happening in the real world. Sis, Chin Lan's face flushed deep red. Are you really not going to call and ask? Making a call spoils the surprise. AI Zinner also watches her computer with a face full of anticipation. That's already open to that mysterious webpage. The countdown progresses little by little. But this is just unbelievable. Chin Lan is about to lose her mind. The person she met last time could very likely be that incredibly mysterious figure, exuding an aura of mystery, who could even be said to have stirred the entire world, the Return Emperor. It's not that she doesn't want to believe. Just the thought of such a possibility brings an indescribable sense of shock. At times like these, she truly admires AI Zinner immensely. To remain so calm. Yes, even though AI Zinner's excitement is written all over her face, in her eyes, this is still too composed. Sis. All right, stop talking and watch the screen. What's so interesting about just a countdown? Chinlan twisted her head. Seeing AI Zinner really had no intention of calling, she finally gave up. She pounded the pillow several times to vent her trembling mood. Then she could only sit beside AI Zinner, watching the screen with her. Say what you will, the starry sky is indeed fascinating. You can unconsciously immerse yourself in its enchanting allure. In fact, as the news spreads, more and more people are joining this ranks. They hold various emotions, nervous, anticipatory, uneasy, staring at the starry sky, becoming increasingly immersed the more they look. As if there's an infinite vastness, infinite mystery converging within. After all, this starry sky, including that emblem representing Star C, is not casually displayed by Shen Shi, but what he's prepared these days. It also contains a hint of primordial energy technology. Not much effect, but enough for everyone who sees it to feel the vastness and awe brought by the starry sky above. And at this moment, it's not just the outside world that's shocked, it's even more so at Star C Island, the true center. There is internet here too. Someone pulled out a phone, and the place went into a complete uproar. Even the well-trained engineering teams couldn't help but stir. Not to mention the subordinates when Hege brought along, they've surrounded their former boss. President Wen, a man who looks at least over 40, excitedly blushed. Is the Star C technology on this really our company? Calm down, calm down. Wen Hege shouting several times, a bit helpless but also honored. He naturally understands these people's feelings. When he found out his boss's identity, he didn't fare much better. Seeing no way to calm these old subordinates down, he slowly nodded. Now you know why I chose to resign and come here. President Wen, you're like my elder brother from now on. The 40-year-old executive excitedly nodded repeatedly, with a grin stretching almost to his rear ear. I just thought that engineering team looked like military engineers. Old Zhang and the rest must regret terribly now. This technology is just unbelievable. Isn't it going to crush global internet companies? President Wen, who exactly is our boss? Yeah, President Wen, where did the boss come from? Is he really, some people say, the future people? When Hejai saw the barrage of questions, and his face turned stern. Don't ask what you shouldn't, just do your job. If you get thrown out, it'll be too late for regrets. These are people with whom Wen Hejai has developed rapport, so seeing Wen Hejai like this, they know he means it. They had no choice but to disperse. The executive who first spoke out turned halfway and looked back. Then, President Wen, what product are we going to release? Upon hearing this question, Wen Hejai's expression became a bit dazed. Yes, he already knows what's to be released next. The boss was right. In 10 minutes, he will shock the entire world. All right, just 10 minutes left, you'll know soon. When Hejai took a deep breath, also, keep yourselves in check, don't photograph the boss, and don't discuss anything online. The importance of confidentiality here should be clear to you. Saying this, everyone turned serious. Indeed, they gradually came out of their excitement. Just looking at the engineering team with changed uniforms, you know the boss must have some connections at the top. When thinking of that miraculous internet technology, it's likely all intelligence agents worldwide will flock here. This job is an opportunity accompanied by risk. The people here haven't truly realized the significance of the word Star C, only seen its dominant strength on the internet. But as Wen Hejai said, only 10 minutes remain. During this last 10 minutes, he's been adjusting his breathing and state constantly. Until the final minute, when Shen Shi's clear voice sounded at his ear. Time S up, stand in the middle, get ready. Chapter 72, An Ordinary Host. Understood, when Hejai responded in a barely audible voice. He wasn't wearing any earphones, nor did he know where Shen Shi's voice was coming from. But it was the same old story. No matter how miraculous the things that happened to the boss, they weren't surprising anymore. So he believed that his response could definitely be heard by the boss. After taking one last deep breath, when Hejai adjusted himself to his best state, and under the expectant gazes of everyone around, he walked step by step towards the center of the platform. Although it was called a platform, in reality, it was just a piece of land where grass had been removed, mounds flattened and pits filled, with traces of road rollers still visible. But when Hege knew, here was an enormous stage, so vast that even he, who was used to being in the spotlight and had strong resilience, couldn't help but feel nervous. "It's starting," Shen Shi's voice came again. It seemed to give Wen Hege tremendous strength. As if when the boss was watching him, no matter how big and important the occasion, it was nothing. At the same time, many netizens around the world, who had been watching the webpage, finally reached this moment. They quickly discovered that the page in front of them had changed. It was a high-altitude bird's-eye view of an island. There was no so-called bullet screen. But on the far right, there was a vertical screen constantly scrolling various messages in all kinds of languages, and the scrolling speed was getting faster and faster, almost turning into a black screen within a short time, startling everyone. Wow, say no more. What company could achieve such a smooth experience? And the netizens soon discovered that below the channel bar, which no longer showed any message content, there were many options. Random display percentile, automatic translation, channel region. Just by looking at the text labeled on these options, one could roughly understand their meanings. Chin Lan directly lowered the random display ratio to 1/10,000th in one go, and then clicked on automatic translation to barely see the messages sliding upwards one by one. This is mind-blowing. The website technology is mind-blowing. Hello to all friends around the world. Long live the great U country. I actually stared at that starry sky for a whole 40 minutes and didn't feel tired at all. God, this is definitely alien technology. I watched for an hour. That piece of the star sea is simply addictive. I watched for nearly 80 minutes. So where is this? Is it a live broadcast? Is this translation feature real? God, I'm gonna be out of a job. It was obvious that the speakers of these messages were from netizens all over the world, attracted here by Star Sea Technologies' incredible publicity and technology. And this website, from the previous Star Sea to the current unbelievable smoothness of information, and even the incredible automatic translation, was stimulating the nerves of most people. The more you understand about the internet, the more you understand the terrifying extent of the technology behind all this. It has completely surpassed reality, reaching the realm of fantasy. The god of the internet truly deserves the name. As for Chin Lan, after seeing the island in the image, she finally accepted the reality. The one who did all this, shocking the entire world, was that mysterious man, Zinner's boyfriend. "Sis," she hugged AI Zinner's arm vacantly, "won't my brother-in-law throw me in the sea?" But AI Zinner couldn't hear what she was saying at this moment. Her face was already flushed, and she clenched her fists, suppressing her urge to scream. In her mind, there was only one thought. So this was the level her man had reached. Shen Shi, although he had already anticipated that this opening would definitely cause a global sensation on the internet, the response at present still exceeded his expectations. Now, the number of people entering the website had exceeded 50 million and was still rapidly increasing. Don't underestimate this 50 million. You have to know that he only conducted a 30-second forced promotion, and even worldwide, it would still only cover a portion of the population. Not to mention, he only allowed for 2 hours of fermentation time. A large number of people were still unaware of this, or were doing something else. However, looking at this momentum, the final number of viewers should soar to over hundreds of millions. Plus, the subsequent fermentation would be enough to make today's press release shake the world. I'll filter some audience information for you and you can interact appropriately. Note, the camera is coming down, Shen Shi said to Wen Hege. At the same time, everyone who entered the press conference live broadcast room was shocked by that unbelievably smooth message bar and powerful automatic translation, and they noticed the change in the camera. Flying down slowly from high above. Stable clear. Far beyond any existing drone footage. Is it going to start? The messages scrolling fast were suddenly reduced a lot, with no one not curious about the Star Sea Company appearing in such a powerful way and that incomparably mysterious Return Emperor. Until the camera smoothly passed through that makeshift base, arrived at the center of that simple plaza, and focused on Wen Hege. Oh shit, isn't that President Wen? Many people from the eastern country recognized Wen Hege at a glance. As a model figure who started from scratch, Wen Hege was an idol in many young people's hearts. He always knew how to manage his public image, being quite active on various platforms and programs with a certain level of fame. Could President Wen be the return emperor? So is the Star Sea Company, subsidiary of the Wen Group. Did President Wen pick up alien technology? President Wen, I'm revealing my cards, I'm actually an alien. Suddenly, more and more voices appeared. Even those foreigners who didn't know Wen Hezhai were frantically asking, searching, and learning about this person. Some audience speeches were directly projected into Wen Hezhai's pupils. This was a targeted projection technology. Wen Hezhai quickly glanced at it and already had an idea for his opening speech. It seems quite a few viewers have recognized me. Wen Hezhai, wearing a neat suit and shirt, smiled. Before starting, I must first explain that I have resigned from all positions including CEO and chairman of the Wen Group and joined Star Sea Technology 3 days ago. Now, standing in front of you, I'm just a regular host for this Star Sea Technology press conference. Chapter 73. Chapter 73. Using this as the beginning of everything. Wen Hezhai's opening remarks caused a sensation among almost all the audience. Eastern countries' audience was astonished that Wen Hezhai had given up the Wen Group, a company he had built from scratch and was thriving, to join another company as a subordinate. Meanwhile, audiences from other countries were shocked by the terrifying simultaneous translation. Indeed, as Wen Hezhai spoke, they clearly heard an even clearer voice narrating simultaneously in their national language. Even the tone and pitch sounded exactly like the Eastern country language spoken by Wen Hezhai. The context had no issues whatsoever. It was like he was speaking in 2 different languages simultaneously. What kind of miraculous black technology is this? Oh my God, Blue Star is really going to become Blue Star Village. I bet this company is selling translation software. I want it so I can travel the world alone without worrying about language issues. So amazing. Is this really a live broadcast and not pre-recorded? Compared to the previously demonstrated text translation, this powerful simultaneous translation technology was undoubtedly more magical, because it truly meant that people using any language could communicate face-to-face without any barriers or translation aid. It could certainly change the world to some extent. But clearly, those awed by it didn't realize that this was merely a trivial detail, at least one that Star Sea didn't care about. Wen Hezhai simply glossed over these words, not intending to discuss translation at all. I suppose everyone is very eager to know who my boss is, where he's come from, and why he has such powerful technology. Wen Hezhai slowly paced on the yellow mud ground and suddenly stopped, shaking his head. Unfortunately, these are still secrets for now. You can speculate to your heart's content, but don't bother asking because I don't have the courage to offend my boss. The final sentence was not spoken in a joking tone. It was extremely serious. Serious enough for everyone to perceive the gravity of the topic. After a brief silence, a flood of information surged instantly. People had come for the secret, and Wen Hezhai's reaction added another layer of mystery to it. They were even more curious about who that person was and where he had returned from. Even Shen Shi couldn't help but praise it. This performance not only strictly adhered to Shen Shi's instructions to keep his identity hidden, but also heightened the mystery Shen Shi had been intentionally creating. It greatly stirred the audience's emotions. All right, let's quickly move on to today's topic. When Hezhai's smile reappeared on his face, completely ignoring all inquiries, I believe everyone is very curious about what such a grand event is for. To be honest, 2 hours ago, when I was suddenly notified to host this press conference, I was just as curious as everyone else. He began pacing again, showing an excited expression, his brand new shoes getting dirty with the yellow mud on the ground, yet he didn't mind at all. He then raised his hand and swung it forcefully. Until an hour ago, I finally learned what was going to be released today, and I am certain that in my life, no moment has been as exciting as that. I can feel a magnificent era, a great era, running towards me quickly. Anyone slightly familiar with speech culture could understand that the techniques Wen Hezhai used were simply to enhance the speech's emotional impact, conveying emotions to the audience through facial expressions, tone, and body language. But so what? Faced with this incredibly magical company, no one could not be excited. Worldwide audiences from every nation were sending messages with astonishing consistency. Tell us quickly. What is it? Enough teasing or I'll kill you. Tell us what it is quickly. The channel bar was already full of prompt messages. Wen Hezhai naturally saw them. Does everyone still remember our company's name? Remember opening the company's website and seeing that deep and enchanting star sea? When Hejai spoke in a slow tone, as if he was about to tell a story from ancient times. Then, as the quantity of refreshed information surged, he suddenly accelerated his tone. All right, I'm done teasing everyone. The product Star Sea Company is releasing today is the space elevator. Yes, the space elevator. This term, which has long appeared in human civilization, is known by those familiar with cutting-edge space technology or related science fiction works. Even if someone didn't know, just by looking at the name, they might guess. It's a device that can continuously transport people or goods directly into space. Currently, in human civilization, it's still just at the conceptual stage. But once completed, it would mean that the cost for humans to enter space would reduce to an extremely low level. Thus, it is considered the first step towards massive construction of space stations, space factories, and even space cities. Naturally, it's also the first step towards quickly building planet fortresses. So, upon discovering Gong Chu delivering a batch of space elevators, he decided to use this as the beginning of everything, not only to start changing human fate, but also to let his company stand before the world. However, after when Hejai revealed the product's name in an unexpected manner, dissonant voices began to appear in the messages sent by the audience. What the heck is a space elevator? Is this it? I don't understand, with such strong internet technology, why not develop internet products? Why not create an all-purpose simultaneous translator? I would definitely buy. A space elevator sounds grandiose, but what does it have to do with ordinary people like us? Exactly, what's the use of promoting a space elevator with such a big fanfare? Boring, let's disperse. While these voices weren't mainstream, most of the audience were still excitedly anticipating, even educating others about the space elevator's significance for space development. However, even in a situation reduced by 10,000 times, the appearance of such voices meant that quite a few people weren't particularly satisfied. For most people, space still feels too distant. In their perception, no matter how advanced space technology is, it merely represents an expectation for a distant future and cannot bring actual impact on this world or their daily lives. But clearly, these people hadn't realized what kind of existence the space elevator, mentioned by Wen Hejai, truly is. Chapter 74, Fantasy Becomes Reality. Wen Hejai also noticed these comments. But he wasn't surprised. Actually, when he first learned that the product this time was a space elevator, he also felt it wasn't shocking enough. He had once been acquainted with the related concepts. The Western Alliance even had a dedicated team researching this project, and the current idea was to connect a space station with the ground using extremely thin but very strong nanograde materials to transmit substances. But when Wen Hejai roughly understood what Shen Shi meant by space elevator, the original concept in his mind was completely torn apart in an instant. He was way too naive. How could the space elevator of alien civilizations be so simple? So when he looked at these dissenting comments, not only was he not anxious, he wasn't surprised either, just a bit sympathetic. These people will soon experience what he just felt. Many of the audience friends may not understand the significance of the space elevator. When Hejai spoke again, the excitement still present on his face. Actually, you can tell from the name that it refers to an elevator from the ground to space. Since ancient times, humans have been filled with fantasies about the sky above. An ancient Eastern country also had the saying, heaven's ladder, and similarly, the Bible had the Babel Tower to heaven. The space elevator is a pathway connecting ground and heaven. It allows humans not only to travel to space by flight, but to have a more convenient, faster, and direct route. It closely connects our blue star with the vast and boundless star sea as an inseparable whole, rather than as two separate worlds. This speech, without a doubt, had a very strong rendering effect. Even the dissenting voices seemed to have decreased quite a bit. Shen Shi nodded secretly. Wen Hejai's ability is still very excellent. However, even though those dissenting voices were reduced a lot, they didn't completely disappear. Some among them were not genuinely hostile to Star Sea. They merely believed that with the current dominant level of internet technology demonstrated by Star Sea Company, they should be developing internet products that directly help and impact their lives, instead of something like a space elevator. Soon, someone wrote, "No matter how advanced your technology is, the situation you're talking about cannot happen right now because an indispensable part of a space elevator is a space station. Given the current development level of space stations, even if you can send people via a space elevator to space, it doesn't have much significance. As a tourist industry, the space station can accommodate too few people. Clearly, the person who wrote this had a certain understanding of the space elevator, at least paid some attention to it. He was actually stating a fact. The space elevator connects the ground on one end and the space station on the other. So, in a situation where there are only 2 space stations worldwide, each only capable of accommodating about a dozen people, building a space elevator doesn't have much practical significance. Even if it could indeed send people for space travel, it could only send a tiny portion of people. And for those wealthy individuals, what difference does it make using a space elevator versus a rocket? When Hege also saw this argument, not only did he see it, but the whole world did as well. Because after this argument appeared, a large number of copies emerged directly, and many people voluntarily copied and sent this argument. However, when Hege merely smiled mysteriously, who said an indispensable part of a space elevator is a space station, he even laughed out loud. It seems everyone still underestimates Star C Company and underestimates our boss even after showing such strong internet technology. I can only say our space elevator exceeds your imagination. Once the words were spoken, the camera slowly moved directly to the warehouse. Yes, the setup was already enough. Some even spontaneously stepped forward to assume the role of questioning. So there was no need to waste more time. A medium-sized truck slowly drove out from the warehouse, and the camera, along with everyone's vision, focused entirely on the back of this truck. It was a cylindrical object, seemingly about 1 meter in diameter and 3 meters high, entirely black, with many intricate patterns printed on its surface. Is this the space elevator? Many people looked with expressions as if saying, "Are you kidding me?" The space station they imagined should be a fairly sizable ground base, needing deep foundations to be firmly fixed, then hanging a string or strings of tough ropes from the space station to connect the remaining ground bases. Maybe there are other space elevators in sci-fi works, but no matter which kind, nothing seemed to relate to this cylindrical shape. Can this be a Rui golden cudgel, shout grow bigger, and jump straight to the sky? Some Eastern country people couldn't help but message to ridicule. Even from other countries there was a chorus of what, huh, what's this thing, and similar reactions. However, when the truck reached the middle position, the torrent of information suddenly stopped. The reason was simple, because almost everyone stood frozen on the spot. In the lens, in their vision, that cylinder, without any traction, actually began to float up slowly. Yes, it just floated up from behind the truck. After this brief silence, the channel exploded. Holy crap, holy crap. Clearly, these are Eastern country netizens. God, my God. Clearly, these are foreign netizens. Besides, there were many other voices. I exploded. Is this a magic show? I was wrong. I really underestimated Star C Company. Mom, come quickly look at the aliens. This really isn't special effects. Let me see the driver's expression. No, let me see everyone's reactions at the scene. Guys, I'm already running to find my luxury yacht. Please give me an address. I want to see it in person. Then what's the truck for? Definitely future people. If this isn't future people, I'll live stream doing a handstand and eat something disgusting. Although Star C's previous performance was mysterious and strong enough, even so mysterious that the total guesses like future people, aliens, otherworldly people, data people started to become fantastical. But what was shown before was, after all, just internet technology. Whereas what's before us is different. If this isn't crafted special effects, it isn't a grand magic trick, then the thing in front of us, this cylinder that suddenly seems to lose gravity and float steadily is, without a doubt, turning those fantasies into reality. Chapter 75, this is the space elevator. Because this absolutely isn't something that the current Blue Star could possess, at least not something most people in known reality could possess. That's why people are so shocked and so excited. Reality has been disrupted, and as long as it's not a huge disaster, this is the reaction most people would have. Because the original reality truly had too many flaws. Poverty, accidents, disease, monotony, almost no miracles. Most people long for fantasies to become reality, especially a more beautiful fantasy. At this moment, the symbolic meaning brought by this floating cylinder might even surpass its actual function. However, when Hege did not forget his task, even though he was equally shocked by this miraculous scene. After all, he knew Shen Shi's identity and had even seen aliens with his own eyes. He quickly recovered his mental state. As you can see, this is the first product we at Star Sea Company are launching, the portable space elevator. When Hege looked at the text directly projected onto his retina and truly spoke like a product spokesperson, explaining the product's features. Unlike traditional space elevators, this one doesn't require a ground base for fixation. It carries a powerful magnetic effect itself and can fix itself in a relative position on the planet using the planet's magnetic field. Before he could even finish his sentence, the information flow in the channel exploded once again. Even when cut down 10,000 times, it was dazzling. Awesome, though I totally don't understand it. A portable space elevator. What a rustic name, fixed position through planetary magnetic fields. What on earth? I'm a doctoral student specializing in high-energy physics, and I feel like I'm reading a science fiction novel. This is special effects, right? Impossible to be real. God, this is true future technology. Who cares about this? We want to see the Return Emperor. We want to see the time machine. For the vast majority of the audience, they just felt that this thing was amazing, completely surpassing reality. But for those who had a bit of understanding, especially the many scientists who were also watching the live stream, they were utterly bewildered. For example, in a military base in the Western Alliance, a middle-aged white man in the lead, wearing a black suit and sporting a beer gut, was closely watching the assembled group of scientists below him. "Have you found out anything?" he asked aloud. The people below were arguably the top scientists of humanity, but at this moment they were looking at each other, eyes blank, faces filled with existential doubt. After a while, a professor wearing glasses finally spoke up. "It might be some device using the planet's magnetic field as propulsion, but I think it's more of an internal planetary flying shuttle rather than a space elevator." With this opening, the rest of the scientists also began to speak. "Yes, maybe it's some device that enhances magnetic effects. Just don't know how much it can carry, what the power source is. I still feel like I'm dreaming. This completely surpasses our understanding of field energy. Even if we were given the detailed full set of technology, it would be like reading a book in an unknown language. The gaps are too many, too vast." The last scientist's words garnered much agreement. What they said earlier was more speculation from the perspective of science fiction enthusiasts, rather than analysis from a top scientist's perspective. Because in front of such things, they weren't much different from science fiction enthusiasts who had an outsider's knowledge of technology. The middle-aged man who spoke could only remain silent upon seeing this. Although they were somewhat prepared, this was clearly not the outcome they hoped to see. "Then let's continue watching," he said. Meanwhile, in the scene, the truck that seemed useless had already driven away, leaving only the steadily floating cylinder in midair, and when Hege was walking toward it step by step. "I think everyone is probably curious about how this thing is used." He raised his hand, clapping it several times. It looked forceful, but there was no sound, and the cylinder showed no sign of wobbling. It seemed as if it was really fixed in that space, as stable as a mountain. "Is it used to carry people and cargo up there, or is it to catapult people upward?" When Hege laughed. "If so, it wouldn't be called a space elevator, rather a space shuttle or transport aircraft." When this sentence was spoken, the scientist who thought the device should be called a flying shuttle immediately blushed. Because he really thought so. However, nobody laughed at him at that moment because they were all in the same boat. All they could do was guess, and guess deeply. They watched the Eastern country person in the scene closely. When Hege's voice slightly elevated, "That's right now, it is merely in its activated state without having fully extended the elevator passage. But soon, you will all see what a true stairway to heaven looks like." As his words fell, he started to steadily retreat, until he stood almost at the edge of the clearing. He raised his arm and swung it heavily. "Deploy the passage." This sentence, like some sort of launch command, caused the black cylinder with patterns to silently split in two. The lower part remained tightly about 10 centimeters tall, while the larger upper part slowly ascended, and in the process, rotated and misaligned like an extremely complex mechanical substitute, vaguely appearing to be composed of countless small cubes. This scene with immense visual effects stirred excitement among all viewers involuntarily. This is not special effects, this is reality. Then in the next moment, as if with a roar, that separated larger part shot skyward. Everyone could clearly see a steady stream of small cubes falling from it, expanding, and then anchoring themselves firmly about a meter apart in midair, continuously extending with the main body shooting skyward. In front of everyone's eyes, forming a long, straight yet bizarre line made of separated cubes. Is this the space elevator? Everyone was drawn to this divine and wondrous scene. When Hedge's voice resurfaced, the entire space elevator is made of one base and 1 million independent field energy units. They interact and connect to form a powerful force field passage that directly reaches space. As you can see, the passageway is not small, and if someone steps into it. When Hejai took a step forward, then he jumped slightly. In front of the camera, his body flew up. Chapter 76, an exciting reality. Yes, when Hejai was just like that, levitating in the air under the gaze of all the audience, flying off the ground, and continuously ascending at a speed that wasn't particularly slow. But people were already astonished. Is this real? Tell me this isn't real. Holy crap, how many times have I said holy crap already? Oh my God. Is there anyone on the island who can start another live stream? Tell me where this is. I'll buy a ticket and fly over immediately. I don't believe it. Special effects. This is definitely special effects. With Star Sea Company's internet technology, creating such special effects would be nothing difficult. Is it really flying up? The channel's comments have erupted countless times today. Just when people thought they were shaken enough, something even more shocking would always appear. If Star Sea Company hadn't previously demonstrated incredible technological prowess and created an aura of mystery, there wouldn't be many who'd believe this scene was real. Even now, there are still quite a few people who suspect it's all special effects. It's Star Sea Company showcasing their powerful information technology in another form. But this slight suspicion didn't stop the tidal wave it has stirred up. It's not just the viewers of this live broadcast. Even the well-trained engineers on the island were widening their eyes and exclaiming in surprise. And some of Wen Hejai's old subordinates were shouting directly. It's not that they didn't want to stay calm, they just couldn't control themselves. The scene they witnessed was even more shocking than the levitating cylinder earlier. It wasn't merely the conquest of the sky. But because this scene was like a myth entering reality, fantasy transforming into reality, filled with the romanticism brought by surrealism. The camera slowly followed Wen Hejai's ascent, even orbiting him with multi-angle shots, finally settling on his excited and thrilled expression. I never imagined I'd experience such a flight one day. When Hejai spread his arms wide, the tremble in his voice adding more realism to it all. Seriously, I've taken countless flights, even parachuting and paragliding, but that feeling was completely different from now. That was a struggle, a battle with gravity and wind, but now this is a calmness, a feeling of seemingly breaking free from gravity and conquering the sky. He even sat cross-legged, still rising continuously, as if seated on an invisible elevator. Until this moment. Only then did the audience truly understand that the space elevator really was an elevator. I'm going crazy. I've never been this excited before. A comment that quickly got the most replications. Besides that, there were many more boiling voices. This will absolutely be a once-in-a-lifetime experience. Want to just keep flying into outer space. So, can we start building cities in outer space now? This is the true celestial ladder, the real Tower of Babel. I want to try it. I was wrong. I naively thought the Return Emperor would come up with an ordinary space elevator. Now, no one in the channel was saying the space elevator had nothing to do with them. This technology, without even considering its purpose, was powerful enough to shake the world just on its own. By comparison, it seemed as if even that terrifying internet technology which once made gods was nothing. Or rather, those surprises before seemed so natural in front of this scene. If they could even come up with something countless times more exaggerated than black tech, what's strange about the internet god? Countless people wanted more than anything to know who the Return Emperor was. Where exactly did they come from? There were even questions being raised more than once about whether they intended to conquer the world. Wen Hejai naturally ignored these messages. He had also recovered from the experience brought by this flight, sitting cross-legged in the sky, continuing to explain. I mentioned before this type of space elevator is composed of 1 million field energy entities. Yes, like these small ones in front of me, they can adjust their distance from each other. The shorter the distance, the larger the diameter of the passageway, and the longer, the smaller the transmission range. The current maximum distance is around 2,000 kilometers. This means this kind of space elevator can easily move people or items to the space station, and even farther. A true channel connecting Blue Star and space, worthy of the name. As for the movement speed, right now I don't have any protective measures on me, so I can't go too fast. But with safety protections, it can reach up to 500 kilometers per hour, meaning less than an hour is needed to get from the ground to space. An hour? Even for ordinary people entirely unfamiliar with space knowledge, they could feel a certain power from this figure. How long does it normally take to send someone to the space station with a rocket? There really was someone who looked it up. The speed of rockets is far beyond 500 kilometers per hour, reaching speeds of 7 to 8 kilometers per second. But rockets can't arrive at the space station directly. They must first do an orbital flight, calculate the orbit and timing to ensure a relative stillness when docking with the space station. This requires a lot of precise calculations, complex procedures, a high cost, and not insignificant risk. The comparison is stark. This is more convenient than taking the high-speed rail to the neighboring city. Someone sent a message in the channel, immediately immersing many people into that future scenario. Didn't expect I'd have a chance to go to space in my lifetime. Going to space, as easy as taking a subway out. This thing would also be amazing for city traffic. It should be possible to lay it flat. You're all too naive. Do you know how much unbelievable technology is behind this? No matter where the Return Emperor returned from, I absolutely don't believe they only have this one black tech product. Some people's comments seem to remind more people. Exactly. No matter how the space elevator turns out, the key is, this thing, like a fantasy realization, was brought out so directly, turning into reality. Is there really no other black tech product in other fields? This is the reality that truly excites and thrills people to their core. Chapter 77, Possessing Infinite Possibilities. Within the channel, another type of voice began to gradually increase. More and more people excitedly expressed their desires. Boss is their virtual reality technology, the kind that allows for fully immersive gaming. This space elevator is so awesome. Does it mean we can fly freely with just a small cube? I feel like the Return Emperor definitely has artificial intelligence, and a really strong one. Are there any soft, adorable humanoid models for sale? I don't want to date real-world girls. Help, my dad has cancer, it's in the late stage. Your appearance has given me hope again. I really don't want to lose him. All these requests, desires, and even pleas cover almost every possible aspect. From travel to life, to relationships to healthcare. Humans have always been a race not lacking in imagination, especially when all of this seems to truly have the possibility of becoming reality. So it drove them mad, made them tremble, excited them. When Shen Shi saw these comments, he understood that the purpose of this conference had been achieved. Indeed, from the beginning, he hadn't planned on selling space elevators or the like. After all, this kind of space elevator was just a tool to assist in building the planet fortress. As some people said initially, it would not change most people's lives in the short term. And the role of this conference was merely starting with the space elevator, representing, allowing people to recognize the wonder and strength of the Star Sea Company. Given the grand scale of the Planet Fortress project, he had no possibility of showcasing strength little by little to gradually establish the image of the Star Sea Company. Regardless of any opening, it would inevitably shake the world. At least the space elevator would not cause too much panic. It should be almost over, Shen Shi said to Wen Hezhai. Push the unresolved issues onto me for now. Upon hearing the voice, Wen Hezhai understood. I've seen all of your requests. When Hezhai had flown up to hundreds of meters in the air, he spread his hands. But these, I also cannot respond to. In fact, I genuinely don't know what astonishing things my boss has in hand. In any case, I must go down first. It's starting to get cold. So how do you get down with this thing? His last sentence was shouted with slight panic towards the ground. But the voice could only spread in the vast white land. There was naturally an element of acting in this, but it also made many people laugh heartily. Various lively voices began to appear within the channel, barely suppressing the overwhelming desires, requests, and inquiries from earlier. Fortunately, Wen Hezhai's figure finally stopped rising and began to slowly descend, and he began to enter the final closing stage of this conference. Now, I suppose no one thinks I've burnt out my brain by giving up the Wen group worth billions to join Star C. When Hejai laughed, then corrected his expression and said seriously towards the camera, "We can all be certain, the emergence of Star C Company and the boss will become a turning point in human destiny. Furthermore, it will be the greatest luck of our generation. Because we will have the privilege to witness many miracles that shouldn't be part of our lives, to experience many huge changes that we would never be able to experience. This world, this era, will have infinite possibilities because of Star C. Like you, I have great expectations for Star C and our future." This passage does not exist within any so-called speech script. Actually, it comes from Wen Hejai's heart. Even knowing in advance what Shen Shi's space elevator was, as someone who witnessed it firsthand, even personally experienced it, his inner shock was not less than that of the audience outside the broadcast room. Especially since he knows Shen Shi's origins, knowing the news of the alien invaders arriving in 3 years. This adds a special significance to the shock. So this is a blessing, an expectation. When Hejai sincerely hopes that Shen Shi's return, the birth of Star C, will make their generation the luckiest in human history. Even if they must face the crisis of alien invasion, it will be the same. And this speech undoubtedly affected some people. A large number of voices of agreement began to appear in the channel. These words are so well said. I'm starting to believe in miracles in this world again. I thought my life would pass as uneventful as my father's, my grandfather's, but I didn't expect to experience something like this. I'm so looking forward to it. Technology changes life. Technology creates the future. I'm beginning to truly understand the meaning of this sentence. Thanks to Star C, I feel my mild depression has instantly cured. This world is truly full of surprises. Everyone who believes in this broadcast can't help but marvel and be filled with anticipation for this miracle that suddenly appeared and changed the world. Just as Shen Shi initially said to Wen Hejai, this is destined to be a conference that shakes the world. And the entire live room's image also abruptly stopped when Wen Hejai smoothly landed on the ground and slightly bowed towards the camera. After the drone responsible for filming, a sphere-like device withdrew when Hejai could no longer control his expression. His face was full of excitement, even flushed red from the agitation. His old subordinates had already eagerly flocked together. Awesome, President Wen. President Wen, can you tell us what it felt like when you flew up? Does it mean wearing a spacesuit allows you to go directly into space? Being able to work with you is definitely the luckiest thing in my life. When Hejai is not old, so there's no strict hierarchy in his team, including several college classmates among them, at a moment of excitement, who cares about such things? But just as Wen Hejai was about to say something, his expression suddenly changed, and his previously relaxed back instantly straightened. President Shen, he said quietly. The other voices immediately stopped. They only then realized there was a person in front of them, as if that person had been standing there all along. Who else could it be but Shen Shi? The atmosphere quieted down. Wen Hejai's subordinates were even more tense one by one. Some of the younger ones didn't know where to put their hands. If before this conference Shen Shi was merely a mysterious background, appearing a mature young boss in their eyes, then now he has become the most special, most mysterious, most powerful existence in the world, unparalleled. Chapter 78, a part of civilization. Imagine a mysterious man returning from an unknown land, bringing with him such miraculous, such powerful black technology. His very appearance heralds infinite possibilities for this world. So how much potential does this man himself hold? Even if someone claims his youthful appearance is merely a disguise, and beneath this seemingly young body lies an entirely different existence, at this point, not many would question it. Thus, when Shen Shi appeared, everyone instinctively stood upright, watching him with tension and unease. After all, this is the Return Emperor, pursued by the entire world. But Shen Shi paid no attention to these individuals' attitudes. He merely said to Wen Hejai, next, this place is bound to become the focus of the entire world, and all sorts of people might dare to come here. You need to be responsible for reception and maintaining order. If there's anyone or anything you can't handle, I will step in. Additionally, the company's relevant departments need to be formalized quickly, so after the uproar from this press conference subsides, there might be a large recruitment. You should prepare for that. Shen Shi did not elaborate much on the space elevator or the shock brought by this press conference. He just briefly mentioned the upcoming tasks. as if this world-shattering press conference were merely a trivial matter. Everyone else had faces flushed with one part discomfort from the feeling of disparity, and the other part perceiving Shen Shi's image elevated further. But when Hejai remained composed, stunning an inferior civilization is indeed just a minor matter for the boss. Understood, he responded seriously, his voice firm. I will handle every task well. Once having been the boss, he clearly understands what kind of subordinates a boss likes, those who can perfectly complete the assigned tasks, neither overdoing it nor causing concern. Good, Shen Shi nodded, and only then did a slight smile appear. You did very well today. A simple compliment, but it left Wen Hejie first stunned, then filled him with an uncontrollable joy. Praise and recognition uttered from someone of substance carry extra weight. And at this moment for him, who in the whole world carries more weight than Shen Shi? Perhaps it's because I've begun to enjoy this miraculous job. Wen Hejie smiled in flattery, yet also spoke sincerely. Contact me if you need anything, just call. Shen Shi turned his head and glanced again at the others, the smile on his face not fading, just saying in a casual tone, don't be so nervous. Once the company's framework is established, you will all be official members of the company. Apart from the technology being somewhat extraordinary and the impact somewhat larger, Star Sea is not much different from other companies. It seems this attitude had an effect. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief. One with more courage even dared to laugh, saying, this technology is not just somewhat extraordinary. You will know what truly is extraordinary in the future. Shen Shi shook his head, but did not explain much further. He gently tapped his toe, and the entire person lifted off the ground, rising into midair in front of everyone, then dissolved into the air. This sudden scene left everyone stunned. Is this black technology or a real god? Still, when Hejie remained composed, his voice steady, all right, calm down. You should be used to this by now. This. One person flushed red, struggling for a long time to say a word. It will take time to get used to this. This scene appeared not scientific at all, but rather very magical. In short, when working at Star Sea, remember one thing. When Hejie jested, whatever happens with the boss, it's normal. Just remember this sentence and you can stay calm. The crowd exchanged looks. Finally, they had to admit that Wen Hejie made a good point. Whether it's black technology or divine treasures, to them, it makes no difference. At this moment, Shen Shi hasn't gone far. He merely remained invisible and hovered in midair, not observing those employees still in shock, but gazing further afield. Several ships, speedboats, and even yachts are heading towards this island. This is normal after all. The first appearance of Star Sea Company, even though the first press conference has ended, only ended the initial and intense tremor. What follows is the real overwhelming tsunami. Many have already found the name Star Sea Island on the official website following the updates, confirming the location of the island where Star Sea Company held its press conference. Even though most people do not possess the means to reach the island, there are always some who are crazily rushing over against all odds. Star Sea ultimately belongs to human civilization. Shen Shi's form began to ascend again, returning to his warship. Why did he want to start a company? Partially because he wanted to give himself an identity within the civilization. And under the current human order, a company is the best choice. It not only connects the upper echelons of the civilization, but also connects the entire civilization. When everyone knows it and has formed such or such a connection with it, Star Sea becomes truly integrated into human civilization, a part of human civilization, rather than just an extraterrestrial aid set up to deal with crises. This is also why he wanted to establish the Special Patent Joint Control Institution, instead of directly gifting technology, for a different level of meaning. In this way, Shen Shi can obtain the life he desires from within the civilization. He's quite concerned about Star Sea's image within the entire civilization. Sebas collect and analyze relevant information online. Shen Shi sat on his captain's exclusive position and instructed the warship steward. Soon, processed and analyzed information appeared in front of him. This press conference's success in shaking the world was undeniable. And it's still rapidly fermenting. Countless individuals who just learned about the entire event are frantically searching for videos of the conference, then discussing them like mad. This is, of course, to be expected, as the significance of this incident is no less than the arrival of an alien, perhaps even surpassing it, because it equally represents a global surreal upheaval. It represents the destruction of the old world view and the reconstruction of the new world view. Everyone is witnessing history. Chapter 79. Chapter 79. The Last Happy Time. Shen Shi was carefully observing the entire network's reaction. The astonishing press conference had just ended, but for most viewers who watched until the end, there was still a lingering sense of anticipation. Because the space elevator was not their primary focus, they were more interested in the surreal significance represented by the space elevator, as well as the true identity of the Return Emperor, especially regarding where he returned from. The speculation online was beginning to lean towards technology directions like alien and future, with alien becoming the most supported speculation. After all, compared to the other guesses, this seemed more realistic. Humanity has never proven the existence of alien civilizations, but neither has it proven their non-existence, so theoretically, the probability of aliens appearing in reality is not zero. This is why fantasy works in this field have remained popular over the years. Though they are all fantasy, aliens can always be found to have a certain possibility. And this was actually deliberately guided by Shen Shi. The entire defense project did not require too many participants, but the project was also difficult to conceal. He chose to shock the world in this way to give people more time to buffer. This way, while building the planet fortress on a large scale, it won't lead to panic. It seems now that this has been preliminarily achieved. At the very least, most people already have the understanding that Star C technology does not belong to Blue Star, and when they begin to accept and get used to this point, the arrival of alien invaders and war will not appear too shocking. As for now, let them spend their final, happy time in excitement and expectation. Indeed, in Shen Shi's view, people at this time are undoubtedly happy, because they are filled with anticipation for themselves and the world's future. This can also be seen from the feedback online. From the information collected now, the most talked about topics online are the speculation about his origins, and second is what kind of changes the appearance of Star C will bring to this era. Some are excitedly expecting that they might soon be able to fly freely, have virtual reality, robot housekeepers, better medical technology, and more life-changing tech products, possibly even escaping the limits of lifespan. The last item is undoubtedly the most anticipated. In modern society with highly developed entertainment industries, human life expectancy has long been unable to keep up with human expectations. Without significant life pressure and with good health, they might still passionately enjoy various entertainment projects even at 40, 50, or even 60 to 70 years old. However, when Shen Shi saw the third trending topic, he couldn't help but furrow his brows slightly. Doubt. Indeed, among the current network discussion topics, doubt ranks third. There is still a considerable number of people, especially those who don't understand the entire event's origin, haven't finished watching, or haven't watched the conference livestream, who expressed great doubts about this whole network craze. This is a century lie. Shen Shi saw a highly popular post like this. This lie is too outrageous. I don't understand why so many people believe this lie. Yes, Star C Company's achievements in information technology are undeniable, but in comparison, their accomplishments in physics are clearly inadequate. Even a middle school student who paid attention in class would know that the essence of magnetism is the tilted component of electricity, the force exerted by a magnetic field on moving charges and currents within it. In other words, if that area was really filled with enough magnetism to make a person fly, the person would be done for the moment they stepped in. Honestly, relying on magnetism to directly move the human body is absurd. Only ferromagnetic materials can be induced by a magnetic field to generate strong additional magnetic fields similar to the external magnetic field. Thus, this is definitely special effects. It's the biggest lie of the century crafted using powerful information technology. The entire post, with a passionate tone, strong emotions, and various scientific arguments, argued how scientifically ridiculous the space elevator shown in the press conference was, ultimately concluding it as a century lie. Only, I never said that the force field channel of the space elevator is the magnetic field, as humans currently understand it, Shen Shi sighed softly. Such a space elevator doesn't have a manual, but as a commonly used planetary transport channel in the future world, one can find some content in the information database. Sadly, among those documents, The only thing Shen Shi could understand was utilizing the planet's magnetic field to fix positions. That's why he had Wen Hezhai do an introduction. But now it seems some people misunderstood. Yet even without this, some people wouldn't easily accept change, stubbornly rejecting everything without understanding. However, when one has to exist in a rapidly changing new world, the most important thing is to be reverent towards the unknown and reality. Shen Shi nowadays is exactly in this way. Long before entering that black market, even when possessing the time crystal, he understood that this cosmos, this reality, is far more mysterious than he used to know. That's why he made every effort to seize time, to understand the future, to learn knowledge, not to become a scientist, but merely to re-recognize this world. Since time crystal exists, it means time can be grasped. Since jump engine exists, it implies space is different from what he used to perceive. Since primordial energy exists, it conveys consciousness has unimaginable power. Facing such reality, he must accept and quickly understand it. This applies to everyone. Shen Shi helplessly shook his head. But just as he was about to ignore the doubting post and look at other information, his eyebrows suddenly twitched. Because the popularity of that post suddenly began to surge dramatically. The author of the post launched a live stream titled, Live Debunking Star Sea. Interesting. Shen Shi immediately realized that the man in the image was on a yacht and very close to Star Sea Island. Clearly, this post was probably meticulously prepared. However, why was Shen Shi originally planning to ignore it? Because even the most stubborn people cannot stop the tidal wave of this great change. No matter how seemingly reasonable the doubts are, they cannot question the reality right in front of them. Chapter 80, Visit My Spaceship. In the current world, many people are caught up in an excited state. But Guo Yi is probably the most excited of them all, because he feels he's about to go viral. Folks, can you see it? Right ahead is Star Sea Island, the absolute frontline of debunking Star Sea Company online. He stood at the front of the yacht, directing the camera towards himself and the island not far away, shouting loudly amidst the sea breeze. The viewership has already exceeded 7 million since the broadcast started, racing towards 10 million. That's more than 10 times his usual livestream audience. He's going viral. What, getting slapped in the face? How's that possible? Guo Yi was so excited his face turned red, even dancing around. All the old fans know, Little Yi is a top student studying abroad in the Western Alliance. Besides, the posts I made aren't rocket science, even a middle schooler can understand. So you all know why I dare to debunk Star Sea, right? It's simple scientific common sense. Immediately, many old fans started explaining Guo Yi's background in the comments. A top student returning from the Western Alliance, a science popularizer and product promoter. As for why a top student wouldn't work at a big company or start a business but become a streamer, it's naturally because streaming is lucrative. Guo Yi's mind was already fast-forwarding to him debunking Star Sea Company, becoming famous, reaching the pinnacle of life. This made his voice even more excited. I've actually thought about why Star Sea Company dares to make something so obviously fake, but folks, the reason is quite easy to guess. Guo Yi waved his arms vigorously and shouted loudly, fake is fake. No matter how real it looks, it can't turn real. What if they manage to fool all the countries? That would be huge. So the reason is quite obvious. They're just trying to fool some uneducated, clueless little folks. What? This doesn't look fake. Folks, take a look, I told you. This world is never short of anti-intellectuals. Trust in science, sweetie. Bet on it. If it isn't fake, I'll jump into the sea and swim. How about that? Not enough. I think you're just messing with me. If this can be real, then I'll permanently quit the internet and stop streaming. How about that? Yes, that's how confident I am. But I reckon Star Sea Company won't let me on the island. Guo Yi faced the camera, his emotions running high, with the ever-increasing viewership continually stirring his heart. This wave of popularity was well-timed. Fortunately, he reacted quickly, was already by the sea, and even before the press conference ended, he rushed here to lead the charge. However, just as Guo Yi was spitting excitedly, desperately hoping to boost the livestream's viewership by another 10 million, basking in being the #1 debunker of Star Sea, he unexpectedly saw the comments explode. Countless words flew across the screen densely. With his eyesight, he could only barely make out a few bold and colorful lines. Look behind you. A series of exclamation marks proved the sender's intense excitement. Yu suddenly had a very ominous feeling. He didn't want to turn around so simply, especially when he saw his shipmates looking utterly dazed. But he eventually turned around and saw, right behind him, in the sky above the island, a line stretching straight to the heavens was faintly appearing there. As they got closer, it gradually became clear. Yes, it was the space elevator made up of a million tiny blocks shown at Star Sea Company's press conference. This thing really exists. Yuoya's lips moved as if wanting to say something, but it only turned into one word. Damn. Shen Shi had already instructed Wen Hezhai, when facing those coming to the island, to allow certain permissions for them to approach the space elevator, take photos, videos, and even livestream, but to firmly maintain order. At this moment, the popularity of the livestream by the host, named Guoyi, continued to rise. But the viewers' reactions had completely reversed. Someone like Guoyi, stubborn even after being debunked, won't be the first, nor the last. It's foreseeable that the authenticity of the space elevator will be fully confirmed soon, and Star Sea Company's name will completely become the center of the world. Shen Shi sat there, suddenly having an inexplicable feeling. The entire world, the entire civilization, is being turned upside down by his decisions and actions. This will become the norm going forward, he said to himself. I need to adjust sooner. And at that moment, the phone suddenly rang. It was AI Zinner. Shen Shi smiled slightly. He could roughly imagine how shocked AI Zinner was at this moment. This should meet the surprise requirement. The phone connected. Shen Shi didn't speak, and there was no sound on the other end. Until after a while, a slight inhaling sound was heard. Shen Shi, when did you leave? Shen Shi was a bit surprised. Is this your first question? Because I had absolutely no idea. AI Zinner's voice sounded somewhat chaotic. I used to see you once or twice a year. 4 years ago. Shen Shi hesitated for a moment before saying, but when I met you and the family, I was controlling from afar, so it counted as me. This lie was tied to Time Crystal's existence. Shen Shi had to keep it secret from everyone. It's unrelated to trust. It's just that he clearly knew, in the infinite star sea, there are many ways to get information from a person's mind. Is that so? The other side went silent again. But just as Shen Shi was about to say something, AI Zinner suddenly let out a long breath. When I first knew you were the Return Emperor, I was super excited. Her tone returned to normal. It was truly amazing. I watched the entire press conference, the internet technology, and the space elevator. Although I expected you must have confidence, I never thought it'd be this big. Then why did you get so sentimental afterward? Shen Shi laughed. Can you stop imitating Sister Lin? I prefer the Kingwen style. I'm Beichai style, okay? Graceful and elegant in demeanor, beautiful in appearance, learned and talented. AI Zinner never shrinks from praising herself. Yes, yes. Shen Shi's tone seemed to agree with everything she said, then slightly became serious. So, want to visit my spaceship? Chapter 81. Chapter 81. Incredibly luxurious visiting delegation. In Shen Shi's heart, AI Zinner has already become an indispensable part of his pursuit of a perfect life. On her body, one side represents his past, the other connects to his future. Therefore, this invitation is not just about inviting guests to visit his spaceship. However, AI Zinner still fell silent for a moment, then smiled and said, there really is a spaceship. Your invitation makes me feel a little like Lois Lane. Lois Lane. Shen Shi was stunned for a moment, but immediately understood AI Zinner's meaning. Maybe, he smiled, but I'm not Superman and won't pull the Western Alliance's antics, so you don't have to worry about those things. I won't give any weaknesses. It's because of the necklace you gave me. Maybe there are other protections around me, airtight to the degree that can make you feel at ease. AI Zinner indeed understands Shen Shi very well, she whispered. I now declare to everyone that I have become the happiest girl in the world. No one will deny it, just. When I think about all of this, it's because you've experienced unimaginable things in places unknown to me and paid unimaginable costs. It makes me a little unhappy. She was initially thrilled, immensely proud, and incredibly happy for everything Shen Shi had achieved. Until Qin Lan said, so where did brother-in-law come back from? That sense of excitement abruptly faded a lot. Regardless of where. Alone, in a place extremely unfamiliar or possibly extremely dangerous, it's conceivable that it wouldn't be simple. But soon she heard Shen Shi's voice. This is quite good. When a person is in the spotlight, only those who truly care will notice the hardships behind the glamour. So your unhappiness makes me very happy. Keep going. Shen Shi smiled. AI Zinner was silent for a moment, then burst into laughter. I didn't expect you to be so good at comforting people now. Okay, I called to congratulate you for achieving your dream. My dream. In Shen Shi's mind, past memories were stirred. That was during his teenage years, when he spoke decisively. My dream is not to pass through this life quietly. I didn't expect you to remember. Shen Shi couldn't help feeling a bit awkward recalling these words. Maybe many people have this wish, but few directly say it like him. Too teenage-like. Coming out of AI Zinner's mouth now, it's almost like a black history. Did you think why I liked you at that time? AI Zinner didn't seem to find these words awkward, instead very fond. I felt then, with your ability, as long as you hold on to this determination, you could certainly achieve this dream. But I couldn't have imagined that once you realized it, you would shake the entire world, even change humanity's future. From now on, all humanity will worship you in awe. Congratulations, the term quietly has now become completely irrelevant to you. Even through the phone, Shen Shi could hear the strong admiration in this statement. This touched him, not only because of his intimacy with AI Zinner, but also because this admiration extends from the past when he hadn't obtained time crystal to the present. Shaking the entire world is just the first step. Shen Shi finally laughed. If you're admired now, there will be even more times in the future when you'll admire your boyfriend. Then I'll continue to look forward to it, boyfriend. Holding the phone, if Shen Shi were in front of her at this moment, he would certainly see her captivating expression. Yet in the end, until the call ended, she didn't mention wanting to visit the spaceship. Because what she cared about wasn't the spaceship, nor the black technology Shen Shi showcased. However, seems like I've been lifted up by this admiration. Shen Shi belatedly realized, because it was the first time he had the thought of definitely not losing. Rather than run away if you lose. Never mind, a bit of pressure is good at the moment. He didn't pay too much attention, already feeling quite confident. Because just as he said, shaking the world is only the first step. This day for all humankind is undoubtedly a day that will be recorded in history. Because Star C Company was born. Almost in any region, any online platform, TV program, radio program, newspaper, magazine, all imaginable means of receiving information, were hotly discussing Star C Company and the space elevator. Various titles filled the eyes of most humans globally. The day the destiny of mankind was completely changed. Is the emergence of Star C Company a gospel for humanity, or a disaster wearing gospel's guise? The incredibly miraculous space elevator has been proven to exist. Who is the boss of Star C Company? Where do they come from? This is already the world's mystery. Until now, our emperor still hasn't spoken. They must know something. These reports included various scopes and topics, even voices suggesting military action to surround Star C Island, though such voices were quickly suppressed. Gradually, some media or individuals began realizing something was amiss. In an event that could influence all of humanity's destiny, the official voice within the entire human civilization surprisingly maintained a consistent silence. Are they planning something, or do they know something? In some places, protests have already been initiated, urging their leaders to disclose the truth. However, on just the second day, the entire world was drawn in by a piece of news. Official representative teams from various places and major forces were departing from around the world, headed towards Star C Island. People saw incredibly luxurious visiting team arrangements. The Holy Britannia Empire even dispatched its first heir apparent, Curtis Nia as consul, leading the team and sailing towards Star C Island in a royal yacht. Yes, a yacht, not a warship. Note the Nia Empire. As the world's remaining influential empire, the emperor still holds significant power, and Curtis is considered the most capable heir of the past 500 years. Regardless of how much of this evaluation includes exaggeration, it at least shows the importance of this crown prince to the whole Nia Empire. Even within its country, every outing would be under tight security. But such a person was dispatched to the immensely mysterious and filled with unknowns, the front of Star C Company. Chapter 82, Rapid Updates. It's that time to release again. This is the 6th year since Rune started writing books, and it's the 7th book. Rune doesn't really like posting single sheets usually, as it affects the reader's experience, but since release remarks are an old custom, let's take this opportunity to say a few words. If there are any old readers familiar with Rune, they should understand that unlike many web novel authors, Rune seldom stays within his comfort zone when writing. It can be said that the past 6 books, including 5 quality works, each new book by Rune seeks certain breakthroughs and changes based on the old ones. This point is supported by evidence. I Built the Salvation Organization is completely an original work established on the core of selling jars from Naruto. That is, changing the world plus showing off. As expected, it became Rune's best-performing original, and the whole story was completely written. However, it still had many problems. In the release remarks of the previous book's conclusion, Rune had already mentioned aesthetic fatigue, singular excitement points, flaws in the protagonist's character, and along with dungeon-style map switching, the later stages of the book were far less exciting than its early stages. Thus came the current new book. To some extent, the new book is also built on the experiences of Salvation Organization, taken individually. It can even be placed in the old book as a dungeon. But ultimately, it's a complete book. The standalone main storyline, which is the line to resist the cosmos crisis, cannot support a grand story, at most supporting a dungeon plot, so structurally it must have side threads, including the protagonist's personal development, internal civilization changes and development, changes in future and fate, and even interstellar changes. Really, if you look for it, within such a background framework, there could be countless perspectives. But the difficulty lies in making these plots interesting and engaging. So everyone can see that Rune has made many attempts. Some received good feedback, and some have been constantly criticized. Actually, writing these recently criticized watered-down plots is not easy at all. Such chapters are most important for foreshadowing and emotion, wanting to reflect changes within civilization. Rune writes them with difficulty. Can only say, these aren't main storyline plots, not suitable for updates when the new book's release is infrequent. This is indeed a negligence by Rune. However, if there is a problem, it should be corrected. A book has a rather long time span. There will always be problems at some point. Soon after the release, it will primarily focus on the main storyline plot. If following the initial planning, as the plot deepens and the storyline and worldview gradually unfold, when many side threads start to connect together, this book should be increasingly exciting. This is also the breakthrough Rune hoped for before opening this book. Focusing on the entire piece, not just the early stages. Of course, whether it will be the case, it's not up to Rune, it's up to the reader's subscriptions. After 6 years of writing, Rune has never sold misery, nor created those so-called anti-theft chapters, because after experiencing the fiasco of Fusion Dimension World, writing 5 quality works, and even experiencing achievements close to 10,000 subscriptions, Rune understands very clearly that in the existing market, as long as genuine readers like it, subscriptions won't be few. If readers do like it, no matter how much you beg or do, it's meaningless. The market is just this cruel. Maybe one day, no matter how it's written, it won't receive everyone's subscriptions. That's when Rune will say goodbye to everyone. So next, it's time to test this book. Explosive updates upon release are a must. Without update limitations, this book will shift to 4,000 words per chapter. After all, shorter chapters indeed don't feel satisfying. Tomorrow at noon 12, 5 chapters will be prepared along with an additional chapter for supporters, making it 6 chapters, 24,000 words of updates. As for subsequent updates, it depends on everyone. No way around it. Writing motivation, efficiency, is greatly influenced by performance. Good performance, surprises, naturally motivates writing more. So according to the old custom, rewards are available. Starting from 2,000 average subscriptions, for every additional 300, add 1 more update. Rewards look at the total. For every accumulation of 1,000, add 1 more update. Monthly votes also look at the total. Every 500 votes, add 1 more update. From the editor feedback data, the current performance so far is not bad, and Rune hopes for surprises, to face the upcoming plots with enthusiasm. Above, thanks to new and old readers who followed up to here.